If you plan on hiring a B2B sales rep, then I highly recommend you put that on hold only until you can go and implement exactly what I'm about to share with you in today's episode. You see, recently, a client of mine that owns an agency and also does B2B consulting services came to me with a major problem. And that problem is the outbound structure we put in place is not only booking calls, but it's booking way too many calls. So much, in fact, that her two full-time sales reps are already back to back, and the calendar is filling up not 1 week, but 2 weeks out in advance from completely cold traffic. Now, if you're in B2B, you understand why this is a problem. And that's because the longer prospects have to wait for the call, the higher the likelihood that they are going to no-show for the call. So time, of course, isn't on our side. I not only need to help her with hiring reps with experience of closing high ticket, but we have to find people who already have previous B2B experience, someone who can carry themselves professionally and have a conversation with executives and other consultants and business owners, identify things like bottlenecks, understanding marketing, understanding KPIs. There's so much business knowledge that is needed. And if you make the mistake of hiring somebody from B2C, well, unfortunately, they really struggle when it goes to closing B2B. There's a lot of education that's involved. And unfortunately, when time's not on your side, you need a good process to filter out the right people so that you can get people who already have experience. And that's what we're going to cover today. So here's what I did next. I went to social media and I did a hiring post. And not only did I get responses, but I got a lot of applicants who went through to fill out the application for the position. And something interesting came up. When I was reviewing people answering the questions, I realized that a lot of these applicants were actually using ChatGPT to fill in the responses. Now, listen, I love people being resourceful. In fact, I didn't hold it against any of the people who blatantly use ChatGPT. All that tells me is that they are willing to adapt and they already know how to use AI and tools. And honestly, I see that as a positive. But what I don't know is how to actually filter out which ones are being legit and have the experience and who doesn't. And I don't have the luxury of being able to go and do one-on-ones with every single one of them to interview and to test them. So I decided to reach out to all the applicants that I liked and invited every single one of them to a group call to conduct a group interview instead of doing it individually one-on-one. Now, the goal of this group interview was to weed people out. The goal of this was not to try to convince every single person to be interested in the opportunity. In fact, I talked during this presentation about all the unsexy parts of this opportunity completely on purpose with the sole intention of getting people to quit. And at the end of this group presentation, there were only 6 people who were interested in actually moving forward to the next step, hopping on a call the next morning. And even the next morning, 3 people quit and 3 people stayed. And I want to be clear, that is not failure. That is actually the proper way to filter. But besides that, what is amazing is one individual who actually attended this group huddle sent me a Facebook message basically telling me, thank you so much for the interview. It didn't even feel like an interview. It felt more like a mastermind because of all the value I gave them and me showing them that the benefit of this opportunity was so much more than just closing. So here's everything we are going to cover today. Number 1, why most sales teams lose respect for leadership. Number 2, how to flip the power dynamic without barking orders to your team. And number 3, a team structure that scales accountability without using micromanagement. And as a bonus, I'm also going to be sharing with you guys the exact group call format that I used to filter all these reps out before hiring them so that I wasn't stuck having to go and do a bunch of follow-up. All right, let's get into it. Number 1, selling the role like it's some sort of dream job. You don't want to present and lead people on with false expectations. You want to always make sure that you're attracting the right candidates and not the wrong ones. And when you make it seem like it's so much more than what it is, then people who are talented aren't going to be interested in the opportunity. Let me give you an example. Since there's a lot of calls coming in through this opportunity from cold outreach, I was very clear during the presentation that all the calls would already be booked on their calendar, because I know that a fear for really good sales reps is that they don't want to have to take the time to go and doing things like cold calling and outbound. So I did make that a selling point on the presentation. However, I also purposely put in uncertainty during the presentation by letting them know that this is a 2-call process and that follow-up is key whenever it comes to turning over deals. So if they weren't confident in their ability to close cold prospects and they've never done B2B before, I actually wanted them to look at this opportunity in that aspect as unsexy, because the reality is, at the state for this offer and where the business is, some sort of talent at this stage is actually needed. And if you aren't confident in your ability to close, then you should be unattracted. That was the entire point. The entire purpose of it was to let people see who are coming in that weren't confident in their ability to close. I wanted them to question and say things like, well, wait a second, what are the numbers, and how much money are other reps making on this opportunity, so I kind of can do the math and know the potential. And now, why would I want that to go through their heads, and why would I create uncertainty? Because the reality is, somebody who is amazing at sales, that is confident in their ability to close, they don't ask themselves those questions. People who are good at B2B sales can literally go and see the process and understand the potential with confidence in themselves without you having to convince them of being confident. Again, that is the entire point. All right, number 2, leading with vibes and not structure. Charisma without clear expectation breeds confusion and resentment. Let me give you another example. So in this case, one of the reps who were on the team, they're actually still on the team right now, being onboarding, being trained, comes from another team that had no structure, no culture, nothing. And I realized that he was not only showing up late to calls, but he really wasn't putting a lot of the time in covering all the stuff that I wanted him to. And honestly, I didn't think this guy was going to make it. And I wanted to be respectful of his time. So I gave him a call and literally told him, hey, I have all these other opportunities that are available, and I feel like based on your skill set, they might be a better fit for you. Would you like me to go and connect you with it instead of you being focused on this? And then he was like, well, I really want to master this opportunity because I've never done B2B before, coming from cold traffic. And kind of like you said in the presentation, I know this is going to be a skill that I could take with me long term that's going to pay off big time. So I would rather learn the skill. Now, when he said that, I respected him for it, but I also knew that I had to give him the feedback, because as a leader, if I don't tell him where he's lacking, then I'm never going to be able to help him grow. So I was just honest with him, and I told him, look, man, on my teams and every team I've ever ran, I only care about people acting like an A-level player. I take team and expectations very, very seriously. And A-level players don't show up late for meetings. A-level players also put in the time to train outside of actual training, right? They put in the reps and they practice behind the scenes. And I'll be real with you, I'm not seeing that from you. And if you're going to be on my team, then I need you to understand what the expectations are and what it is that we are looking for. Again, setting clear expectations. Very, very important. And what he said next actually really surprised me. He goes, look, I get what you're saying. And I'll be honest with you, the team that I'm on now that I was telling you about that is not doing very well and we're not making any money, they're actually very chill and they're laxed. He's like, they don't care if we don't show up to meetings. They don't care if we have our cameras on. He's like, they don't care if we're late. Like, that's just kind of the vibe of the team that we're on. And because of that, he's like, it didn't come to mind. And I want to be pushed. And I know if I'm going to grow, I want to be held to a high standard. So again, I really respected him for saying that. But just note that it's super important that you are being very clear with the expectations whenever you're hiring people so that they know what culture looks like. Because if you don't let them know, then they're not going to be able to follow it. Which leads me to the third point. You're managing individuals, not culture. People won't respect you if you're managing them as an individual. Notice how in the previous example, I leaned on expectations for the culture of the team. You cannot scale a B2B organization by trying to manage every single individual one on one. Because if you do that, then the entire operation is dependent on you. However, what you can do is set all expectations around culture. And when you protect culture and you get buy in from reps to culture, what inevitably happens over time is that reps will step in, especially when you hire new people, and they will also protect the culture. The best case scenario that happens when you do this right is when you hire somebody new and someone shows up late for a meeting, and then everybody else on the team sees it and calls that person out to where you don't have to say anything. That is when you know that you have a high level of culture and a high level of understanding from other members to want to step in and protect that culture. Okay, so let's recap this for just a moment. You do not want to convince people to join your team, period. You want to actually make the role sound harder than what it is. And I know that that sounds contradicting. I know that sounds scary. And I know in your mind, you're probably thinking, well, if I do that, no one's going to want to join. I promise you, it will save you so much time if you just repel the wrong people early. In fact, I wasn't even hiding it during the presentation. I literally got to the midway through the presentation, and when nobody left, I looked at everybody on the group call and was like, dang, I really thought after saying that a lot of people here would have bounced and you guys wouldn't have stayed. And they kind of like were shocked. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm genuinely looking for the right people. And like, guys, like my goal here is to like filter you guys out. I wasn't hiding my intention. I told them what the expectations were and why I was asking the questions and why I was laying it out in a particular way, and just had complete transparency. Because the reality is, if you need hand holding, this opportunity is not going to be for you. And you can always see the type of people who are going to need hand holding. And I want to avoid that like the plague. So, like I said earlier, as a bonus, I want to kind of walk you guys through the filtering format that I had on the group call. Okay. So, kind of the first part of it was having the live session with all the applicants, right? You want to gather them all together instead of doing individual interviews, and schedule it within enough time frame to where you can obviously go and get prepared. Then you want to show them exactly what the call volume looks like. Do things like screen share. Reps want to see show and tell. They want to see proof. They want to see the actual calendar. And for me, it was really simple. I just went through calendar and showed them, hey, this is this week. This is next week. This is the following week. As you guys can see with these two reps, what's the problem? And then the reps literally were like, oh, you have too many bookings that far out. And I was like, right. And with that many bookings that far out, what happens next? And all the sales reps were like, oh, a lot of no-shows. I'm like, bingo. So share the realities, share the current KPIs so they can actually understand your numbers. Just have transparency with people. Don't be afraid that people are going to see that and get discouraged. It's okay for them to be discouraged, because again, if you have the wrong people in the role and somebody is more talented and they see that, the right people will see the opportunity. Next in the structure, you want to cover all real expectations, right? The call volume, how there's no babysitting involved, how there's going to be daily accountability, and you're really looking for people who have independent work ethic, right? They can hold themselves to a high standard. Now, if you don't have daily accountability or anything like that, totally fine, but that's just the part of the call where you're going to actually go and cover it. And finally, at the end, this is very, very important. The fourth and final step of this formula for the call is inviting the reps to actually leave and quit if it's not a fit. Tell them, hey, there's no judgment here. I'm really looking for the right people. So if you see this and you decide it's not a good fit for you because you're not quite confident in your ability to close, it's okay. I would rather you save us both time, and I will happily recommend you guys for other opportunities that could come that may be a better fit for you. So give them permission to self-select out of the process and let them know there is no judgment. Because what will happen is a lot of people will feel like they're being judged if they just bounce or they say no, and they don't want that kind of judgment from everybody else that is there. So just tell them it's okay. Now, again, after doing this, the actual outcome was the 6 people who stayed even the next day after doing this. 3 people left in the very beginning of the call because they just didn't want to leave on the group huddle. So they actually waited till the next morning and then finally were like, "Hey, I just want to tell you, thank you so much, but I'm out." And I was like, oh, "Okay, good." Because again, that was the goal. And I was actually surprised that even 6 was moving forward because I like to have people who are filtered out. So this is the actual structure that you guys can see here, right? The 45-minute live session, and then actually going over KPIs, covering the expectations, and then giving them permission to leave. Very, very important. And then the rest of the entire call, it's very important to leave another 45 minutes to an hour there for Q&A, because a lot of people are going to have a bunch of questions. Answer their questions, give them the reality, and don't try to oversell them on the dream and making your opportunity what it is not, because that is just going to leave you in a position where you're stuck wasting so much time with the wrong people. And I promise you, that's going to cost you money more so than help you in the long run. All right, so let's go deeper into leading with vibes and not structure. Here's the reality. Reps respect clarity and not charisma. When you set clear expectations, that will outperform any type of motivational speeches every single time. And trust me, I even fall into the trap of wanting to motivate individuals because we know in sales, mindset is everything. And so when you're seeing doubt, sure, give your speech, tell stories, do whatever you can to make them feel confident and certain to overcome any type of limiting beliefs. But if that comes up a lot from people, just know that that is an actual red flag, because the right people will have the right mindset, but we're all human. When people are at their lowest on your team, it's okay to be there as a leader and help push them through that, right? But if they're always needing motivational speeches and always needing your time to make them feel better, then that will be a clear indication that you might have the wrong individual. Now, this next part may seem common sense, but setting up the right SOPs and the scoreboards and the right comp model to where everyone can see it is going to help define what success looks like, right? You want to create systems and make them visible so everyone can see what each other is doing and really have a clear picture of what is expected of them with those KPIs based off your SOPs, etc. And finally, if you have a profit partner, right, then just let your profit partner be in charge of enforcing everything and not you as the CEO or the business owner. Let your VP, profit partner, whoever, they oversee the team. They enforce these things, right? Really separate yourself from enforcement so that way you can maintain the overall leadership position. All right. And finally, going deeper into managing individuals. You really want to build a team that polices itself. You want peers who are going to hold each other accountable so that way you are free to lead. And one thing that I like to do that I've actually done recently, right away in the very beginning, even as new people are being onboarded on the team, is I like to assign roles to them when I'm off doing other tasks to let them step up as a leader early on. I'll do things like, hey, training's coming to an end. I have to go and hop on this next call. I'm going to let someone come on and shadow me. But in the meantime, who wants to take charge to be able to go and post a link so you guys can continue training? And then I'll just sit there and I'll wait because I want to see how long is the silence going to sit there? Who's going to actually raise their hand and step up as a leader? I'm looking right away. Who isn't on the team that has leadership position? Who's on the team the most confident? And if it gets to the point where nobody can respond, then I'll actually start assigning it to see, can they implement in a timely manner? Can they go and follow instructions? And I'll tell you one thing. I was really shocked with one individual who was on the team. I had him go and do this, and I followed up with him later and said, hey, how did training go? And his feedback was really, really good. He's like, yeah, this person I've noticed is struggling with XYZ. And the other one is really struggling with like this, and this. But those seem to be their weaknesses, but I know that they can overcome it. And what was so funny is they got the weaknesses 100% correct. So I was really impressed with his ability to see what it was that they were lacking. And that tells me that he has knowledge and he has a lot of potential long-term on the team. So never be afraid, even in the early stages of hiring, even on day one, don't be afraid to assign any type of task to let people step up as a leader. So that way your team can start helping you with leadership and holding each other accountable. Now, make sure that you are actually scheduling out all of your weekly huddles, your training, your rituals, any type of accountability. Create systems in place to make it easy to schedule this and block out their calendar so everybody already knows in advance what days that they're coming and that they're meeting on. Okay. And remember, culture is what's going to scale when you're not around. When you are offline, culture is what is going to scale. So true success is when performance maintains even when you are not there. Let the culture be the driving force of your team and organization. Okay, so remember this. If reps don't respect your systems, then it is because you haven't built any systems. From a macro point of view, you want to create standards. You want to have a culture that enforces those standards. And then finally, respect will follow for the right people. And you want to protect culture at all costs. I love when people come to train and they have the right mindset and I know that they have the grit. I'm completely okay with sticking around for a while with that individual and putting time into them if they have the right mindset and they have that grit and I see that they're putting in the work. I love finding people who are moldable and who are trainable long term, that don't make excuses and that don't just give up when things are hard and purposely come to me and ask for feedback and other things they could be doing to grow. Those are the type of people that you can mold into top tier A-level players, right? But if they don't have that grit, then trying to spend all this time and ramping them up in a KPI is not going to be worth anyone's time. Mindset is everything when it comes to this. All right, if you're new to this show, then make sure you go back to episode 6. It's titled How to Build a Comp Plan That Keeps Reps Aligned and Hungry, because if you implement what we're talking about today, you are going to want to make sure that your reps are being compensated appropriately. So make sure that you go and check that out. And finally, take action now. So if you're building a B2B sales team and you want it to perform without you constantly micromanaging them, then make sure you subscribe to the Sell for Scale show. My name is Dylan Starr, and I will catch you guys on the next episode.